Hello, this is Blue Star, Defender of Equestria, and this is my next Focus on video. Make your mark / a new generation, and the use of gear / technology. As I've said before, that clearly one of the purposes of a new generation / make your mark is to take My Little Pony from sort of that fantasy era into the modern era where we have, cell phones, laptops, the internet, because, well, that's what the modern audience is going to identify with. Here's a record player. I remember these, perhaps not quite as old as this one, but the younger generation won't even know what this is. I think that is good, so that this show becomes more relatable to the modern generation, but at the same time, I think they have still kind of kept that, sort of old-timey kind of feel, like the kitchen in the Crystal Bright House is that clearly this is sort of like modern equipment, but it's not like super high-tech modern kitchen and all that stuff, so I like that. And it enables characters like Pip to even be here. You can't have a social media star without social media, which means you have to have smartphones, laptops, the internet, and it's still always fun to have them ponifying up, all these things like, no, cancernet! Ugh. They've added enough technology so that we've brought it into the modern era, but not so much that everything is just super crazy high tech. Like, for example, do I think that there are 747s and Saturn V rockets here? I don't think so, because ponies don't really need them. While we do see the ponies like riding around in this trolley, the ponies clearly don't drive cars. And I think the long story short as to why there aren't those kinds of things, like why don't the ponies drive cars, is because they're ponies. And ponies are well equipped to run a lot farther and a lot faster than we are, so they don't really need things like cars. But as we've seen with like the hot air balloon, it still is nice to have some sort of vehicle to get you from point A to point B, so you don't have to run that way, because just because you can do something doesn't mean that you really want to. I really love the first scene in Make Your Mark with Zip sneaking around her own palace, because it was just so much fun. But also because, ooh, a radio! Getting into the technicalities, is this a radio, like a walkie-talkie, or is this somehow like tying into her phone or something like that? I don't know, it could be both. With the exception of the smartphones, this is like the first time we've seen a pony using a long-range communication device, because in Friendship is Magic there weren't any. I think Zip definitely wins the prize for the pony that uses the most gear. Not only does she has a smartphone, she has binoculars, she has a radio, she has this thing on her hoof with looks like it's just a storage thing, and the fancy detective goggles, as I'm going to refer to them, made by Izzy. Aw, which was a very nice thing for her to do, especially after being falsely accused by her, but oh well. Clearly trying to progress a little bit from the, oh, I'll just put this under my wing and pretend that it just disappears somewhere, to, oh, you know what, we might actually need to have things on like their hooves or something for storage, or to have the badge. It's because it's a problem with the ponies that they don't wear clothes, so they don't have pockets or anything to put stuff in. So I guess in some ways, the putting the under the wing thing is kind of like their pocket, and, like everything else is just sort of like extra kind of a thing, I guess, is my thoughts on that. I really like Zip's use of gear, because yeah, it's kind of fun and funny to see them just take the stuff and just put under the wing, but it is nice to see that, they're starting to actually think about, okay, I'm a pony, where do I put that? I need to put that somewhere. On that same kind of thing, I kind of like that Sunny is a character that essentially wears this bag all the time, which is something we haven't really seen before in My Little Pony. Ponies don't wear bags. I think the long story short is, since she's a Nerf pony, she has to have something to carry around this book that clearly means so much to her that she wants to carry it around with her everywhere. So I like the fact that they started to do those sorts of things. I've always liked it. It's like, okay, I'm a pony. How would I design this? How would I solve this problem? Not, this is clearly made for people, how do I make this work for a pony? I've always found that interesting, and on that same thing, I kind of like what they did with Zip's radio, and that it kind of goes across her chest instead of just being like mounted on her hoof or something like a person might. And if I was a pony, that might make sense to put a radio there. So I just really like the fact that, the ponies are starting to use more technology and more gear, because not only is it available, but it also makes sense for them to do so. As the old saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention. For example, Zip, she's become a detective. She really needs to have this badge and like extra storage, and I guess this radio is going to be kind of part of her gear, because I guess she can call back into Hitch and stuff. And of course, the fancy detective goggles that were lovingly made by Izzy. I really like them, but there's parts of me that are also thinking, I'm not so sure if these are going to be useful for detective work, because the 3 modes are night vision, thermal, and x-ray, which I have to say, in one pair of goggles, is incredible, especially since x-ray technically doesn't exist, but of course we're talking about ponies that live in a magical land, so... And tell your tale, make a fool out of me, that she tries to use the goggles and they really don't help her here. Because night vision and thermal are really only useful in like low light conditions, like at night. And x-ray is pretty cool, but may not necessarily help you in a lot of situations. So what Zip might have learned in that instance that, yeah, technology and gadgets are cool, but there's no replacement for good old-fashioned detective work, so... I do think that these goggles are going to be useful for Zip, but just not in every single situation. But of course, that's okay. That's the way that, tools work, is that sometimes it's all a question of the right tool for the right job. And in that particular episode, the right tool for the right job was for her to use her brain and not rely on her gadgets. But in any case, I look forward to seeing, Zip using the goggles and more technology and more gear, and seeing what kind of technology and gear the ponies develop and seeing them using it in the future. So, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you for commenting, liking, and subscribing, and until next time, this is Blue Star. Stay strong, and pony on. Blue Star out.